This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/SBO. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 20 of the Flixwatcher Podcast. On this episode of the Flixwatcher Podcast, we're going to be talking about ExMachina, which is Alex Garland's directorial debut. And in the hot seats today, we have Dave from Cinemile and Shitegeist. The award-winning the Cinemile Podcast. Congratulations, guys. And second podcast, the Shitegeist, alongside Joe, also from the Shitegeist Podcast. And we hope you enjoyed the chat, and we'll see you guys on the other side.
Like what you hear? Don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes. You can find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod and visit the website flixwatcher.tv for full listings about this particular show. Warning, there will be spoilers, there will be bad language. As always, the films that we're reviewing were available to stream at the time of recording. This episode of FlixWatcherPod is brought to you by GL Productions. GL Production provide hassle-free professional quality podcast production at an affordable price. So if you're looking to get into podcasting but fancy a little bit of professionalism to help you out, then we highly recommend GL Productions. If you fancy 10% off your bespoke podcast production package, tell them Kobe and Helen sent you for your first order. Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Flixwatcher Podcast. We've got a very special guest here today who's come all the way here to record, Joe, and we're also joined by Dave from the award-winning podcast, The Cinemile. Would you like to say hello, introduce yourselves and tell us about your podcasts?
Hello. I'll go first if you don't mind. My name's
You
Joe.
go, Joe.
My name's Joe, and I'm a co-host with Dave of Shitegeist, which is a pop culture podcast. And we like to talk about trends and tropes and themes in pop culture. And usually that means we wind up talking about movies and film and going off on tangents for way longer than is necessary.
So many tangents.
Yeah.
I call them segues.
You do. They're not that. That implies we're going somewhere, and these are just tangents.
And there's a lot of puns. Joe is the undisputed king of the pun.
You can't set me up like that.
Yeah, you can only fail now.
I'm excited for what's going to come to today.
You're setting pun-realistic expectations.
Oh,
yes. It started.
And I'm Dave. I'm a returning guest.
Yes.
Thanks for having me back. So last time I was on with my wife, Kathy, who is my co-host of the Cinemile. She couldn't be here today.
The award-winning Cinemile, we should say.
Yes. We were honoured to have won Best New Podcast at the British Podcast Awards. So thanks again to the judges. We still can't quite believe it, but yeah.
We can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
And I think it's fair to say you're up against people who, like Edith Bowman, for example.
Yeah.
Scroobius Pips has a podcast in that same category, and you guys just
Like pros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you need to describe yourselves differently.
We are not pros. We're just walking down the street from the cinema with a recorder. That's all it is.
But podcasting doesn't need to be so complicated, and I think that's what it shows.
I guess not.
Yeah.
Certainly not complicated.
So we're here talking about. Some people said ExMachina. I say ExMachina. What? How do you say it, Joe? It's your choice.
Yeah, it was my choice. I vote ExMachina.
Yeah.
Me too.
From Deus ExMachina, but
yeah.
I guess we'll get into it later in detail. But it's clear that God is missing from the title, so hence there's no Deus.
Yeah.
In the title.
I never thought of that.
We're getting deep already.
Cheeky.
There you go.
Well, it's a deep film. So can you tell us A, why you chose it, and B, a bit of synopsis before we go into the discussion?
Yeah. Well, it was a bit of a rush choice. I had to look through Netflix and pick something that would satisfy all the requirements. I wanted something that was a bit meaty and I'm a fan of sci-fi, and this for me is what sci-fi should be.
Right.
It's one of the best sci-fi films of the last. Sorry, I know this is sort of tipping my hand to begin with, but I think this is one of the best sci-fi films of the last couple of years, and I hope we get some agreement, we get some debate. But
I disagree.
Oh,
straight out of the bat.
Yeah. So to synopsize, it's about a computer programmer who wins a prize to go to visit this billionaire tech genius who has a secret project going on in his isolated mansion, and that secret project is an AI. And I suppose ostensibly the premise is that this guy is brought there to test the AI and see is it true intelligence, and I guess nothing is what it seems. And like most sci-fi films, it's all about hubris. So that's the best thing about sci-fi, and this film has it in spades.
Sure. I mean, a lot of people, we had the guys from Simon Watts.
Level Up Human.
Yeah, from the Level Up Human podcast, and he was saying that a lot of films that are labelled as sci-fi aren't actually sci-fi. I'm sure he would have loved this film, actually, but a lot of the Marvel films are called sci-fi films when they're not really. Like Star Wars is not sure it's really sci-fi. It's a fantasy set in space, isn't it?
There's very little science.
Yeah.
There's plenty of science in this movie.
Yeah.
You could maybe make an argument for something like Star Trek The Next Generation being sci-fi, but Star Wars is more like a fantasy that happens to be in a space locale.
Yeah.
Whereas this is about where humanity has come from, where humanity is going, and our relationship with technology. And you don't get more sci-fi than that.
Yeah, there are a lot of moments in this movie that cut a little close to the bone. I think particularly, are we okay to spoil?
Absolutely.
Spoil it. So the Nathan, played by Oscar Isaac, is essentially, he's Mark Zuckerberg mixed with Richard Hammond. And not Richard Hammond, John Hammond. Richard Hammond from Top Gear, the eccentric billionaire Richard Hammond. No, John Hammond from Jurassic Park, and probably a bit of the guy who runs Hooli in Silicon Valley on HBO. Have you seen that
Gavin
one?
Belson.
Gavin Belson. Yeah, there's a bit of him in there. Yeah, he's this eccentric Silicon Valley billionaire who is the owner and creator of a thing called Blue Book, which is you don't have to stretch too far to figure out what that's being influenced by.
Google and Facebook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where he explains where Ava's brain has come from, and how she's learned to mimic human behavior or to form her own personality. And it's basically he hacked into the search engines, and it's the patterns of human behavior, and it's the randomness of it. And there's a great line in it. He said it's not what we're searching, it's how we're searching.
Yeah.
I think it was something like that. And
Is
it's
it why
the
we're searching?
randomness of it all.
I think it's how, or is it why? Yeah, it could be why. What's interesting, you said hacked into all the devices. That's not really true. He owns all of them, and it's in your terms and conditions. So
That's true.
Has anyone ever actually read the EULA and used a license agreement for anything that you've signed up to?
Too long to read.
Yeah.
Not since the 90s, I'd say, installing things on Windows 95. That was probably the last user agreement that I read.
You were like, hang on.
Yeah,
got out the glasses.
Yeah, I don't like this section here. Mr. Gates, hi. Can you make a small amendment, please? Because I don't like this. And then I'll download it.
Yes, I like what you've done here.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about. Oh, I see.
Yeah. But so yeah, you're talking about hacking into the cameras to mimic and understand basically hacking into billions of people's cameras and distilling that down into an algorithm so that Ava could understand people's facial expressions, understand what people are talking about, understand what people want, why they want them, and to mimic human behavior. And you're saying, Joe, that earlier before we started, that's something that's happening nowadays.
Well, yeah, that's the question. You're saying mimic human behavior.
Yeah.
And that's one read of it. The other read is this the next phase of life where it's not a mimic, it's not something pretending to be human. This is a highly advanced intelligence that can do more than is possible with human. Like, this is a human lie detector.
Mm.
So this is, I don't know, I won't bore your readers with the tech behind it, but Ray Kurzweil has a book called The Singularity is Near, and he describes these 6 epochs, and we're currently entering the 5th epoch where human intelligence and technology will begin to merge, and we'll start to see things coalescing and coming together, and there will be a point, the singularity, where things will expand at a rate that we cannot keep up with effectively, that we cannot imagine how fast things are going to move, and that's what this film is talking about.
Is anyone else picturing the end of Superman 3 right now?
What's the end of
When-
Superman 3? Is that
Do you remember when Robert Vaughn,
Oh.
his like female companion, like merges with the machine?
That's the one set in Grand Canyon.
Yeah,
That
that gave me nightmares
That-
as a kid.
that's such
the,
an horrific
that's the
scene.
singularity right there.
Helen,
I mean, the Terminator 2, really, that's how it's going to be.
I was
isn't
thinking
it?
Skynet when you were talking
Skynet.
about that.
Skynet's coming, guys.
And
That's it.
the Matrix
Yeah.
using humans for batteries.
It can go one of two ways, and that's the first way. That's like the eradication of humanity, and that's certainly a possibility. But the other way it can go is
I've read about it. It's true. It's going to happen.
yeah. The other way is that whatever comes in the next phase of intelligence, and they're talking about 2040 as a kind of a mean predicted year for that. So it'll be within our lifetime if we live that long. That something will emerge, and that it, like, we will transcend biology, will transcend Earth, and that we'll go and explore the cosmos as this new entity.
Right.
And that's what futurists predict.
Because we could live forever, right? If we upload our consciousness.
Once we make it to 2040. So just don't take any risks between now and then.
So like 23 years' time. Is that maths right?
This is why the computers will win. Because there were 4 of us here and we couldn't piece
We
that
couldn't
together.
work out together. When I was like 8, I could do mental arithmetic like that. But now I can't. Now the iPhone's about, I don't
we
need
use
to.
technology too much.
Yeah.
Rely on it
That's
too
the
much.
point. Like you have outsourced your memory to a search engine, and we all do it. Try and live without your phone for 48 hours. It's like someone's cut off an appendage.
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, before mobile phones came out, I knew the phone numbers for every single one of my friends.
Yeah.
Now the only phone number I know is my parents' home phone number.
Yeah.
my
And your
own
own,
one.
I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones that haven't changed.
Yeah, the ones that haven't changed.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of my friends haven't changed, but just I don't need to know them to ring them. So it's kind of, it is freaky, isn't it? How
Also,
much we
who
just
rings
outsource.
anyone these days?
Yeah, just text on
If
WhatsApp.
somebody, it's like, why are you calling me?
So we're kind of digressing away from the actual film and the content of the film and how it's been made and stuff like that.
This is classic Shitegeist territory.
Sure.
to veer way off course.
We've poisoned your podcast.
But so what do you guys, I mean, let's talk to Helen first. What are your thoughts on the film?
I
See a
love,
big smile.
I love this film. I think it's amazing.
How did you watch it the first time?
At the cinema, I saw it at the cinema. And yeah, just everything about it is fantastic. The performances are amazing. It looks amazing. It's so clever. It's one of those really perfect films, I think. And if you haven't seen it, then stop listening to this now, because you need to go and watch it.
Because
and
we're
then
going to
come
talk
back
about
and
more
listen to it.
spoilers, I'm sure, during the course of this discussion. I mean, this was a really good year. We talk about the actors, people in there. Oscar Isaacs,
Love him.
amazing. Alicia Vikander, awesome. And Donald Gleeson. This is a big year for those 3 outside of this anyway, because Oscar Isaacs and Donald Gleeson were going to be in the first Star Wars, The Force Awakens.
Mm.
Was that a Danish girl out that year for Alicia Vikander?
She
Might be
won.
the year
didn't
after.
She
win
won
that year?
best,
Yeah,
best
yeah.
supporting, yes. And Oscar Isaacs had the HBO series I Need a Hero, Show Me a Hero,
Oh, right. I didn't know that.
which is excellent. I would recommend anyone checking that out. It's a bit of a bummer, but if anyone likes David Simon from The Wire,
Absolutely.
you know, that's definitely worth
Oh,
checking out.
okay.
And also, he had a film which was very much underseen and underrated, was A Most Violent Year.
And Most Violent Year, I caught up on that recently.
Yeah.
And it's quite good.
I loved it. Absolutely loved
And
it.
he's very good in it,
Yeah.
most importantly. I haven't seen a bad thing with him in it.
No, Drive.
Yeah?
The Coen brothers inside.
Oh,
Llewyn
Llewyn
Davis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I love that soundtrack
Yeah.
so much.
So it's well put together, tight, 3.5-hander, really, isn't it? 4-hander.
Yeah.
Written and directed by Alex Garland.
Yeah.
Which we were all discussing. His previous work as well is pretty stellar. And his upcoming project, I said a quick look, looks quite exciting as well.
So how many of his books have you read before going into?
I read The
film side of
Beach
things,
and
yeah.
The Tesseract as well, so
Okay.
I read them both.
Has only got 2 books.
Yeah, I think so. And
And
then he kind of started doing screenplays, and
More
I
money.
think that's it really. He started working with Danny Boyle and has just become like, I would watch anything that he has any involvement in.
Yeah.
Yeah, well clearly, like, the guy's speaking at the top of his intelligence, and he doesn't dumb it down for the audience, but he brings people along as well. Like, there are some really lofty concepts in this, and it's a case of, okay, you either have to pause it and do the research and come back to it, or just keep up and maybe look into it afterwards, because he knows an awful lot about an awful lot of things, and he knows storytelling, and he can get the interplay between the characters right and make you engaged from the start. Again, I'm tipping my hand in terms of my my rating.
What did you think of the movie, Joe?
So.
It's really well paced as well.
Yes.
I mean, it's never boring, and it's so tense in times as well.
Yeah.
But it's also really funny in places.
Yeah.
And there's just so many moments that are just so smart, and it is just incredibly intelligent. And, you know, for a directorial debut as well, it's really astonishing what
he's achieved in it.
actually, yeah.
Because when I first heard his first going into cinema, I was kind of on 10
It's
tucks.
like he can write well, but can he direct?
Can he actually direct?
Yeah.
And I think one thing you both said, you talk about the interplay between particularly Don Gleeson, Caleb and Nathan was so tight. And there's ways where Caleb's going in there and he's trying to play the programmer game and trying to work that kind of angle. And Nathan kind of completely undermines him and says, yeah, but what do you think? I just want to know what you feel. And that kind of pulls a rug from underneath Caleb's kind of mindset of how he's going to approach this Turing task that he sets, and that sets the dynamic going. And they're never on the same. They were never going to be on level footing, but that kind of dynamic was always there and present in some kind of undertow pulling the story along. And
there are some very clever devices he put in here. I think the power cuts is very clever because that's what keeps ramping up the tension. When you get that first power cut between Caleb and Ava, and she says, "He's not your friend, don't trust him," and that sets the tone for every other conversation that Nathan and Caleb have, because you're like, what is this dynamic? And he's so intimidating and threatening, but also quite funny and bizarre in his alcohol. Like the scene where Nathan catches Caleb picking up the phone, and he's just sort of sitting in the corner drunk staring at him, and he says, "Who are you gonna call?" Ghostbusters. And it's like, it's a terrifying and bizarre thing to say.
But also, like, the one element of Ghostbusters that he highlights
is the oral sex. He says, quote, "A ghost gives Dan Aykroyd oral sex." And that's how he describes the film.
I had no
so
idea what
funny.
was happening in that scene as a kid.
When a kid, exactly. now it's a 12. It's a 12 rating because of that one scene.
Is it? Well, and they're smoking in every scene.
Does that make it 12 now if they're smoking in scene?
I don't know.
Well, do you
you'd
see
never
it in
get
kids' movies now? That's the question. Yeah.
Not enough, I say.
Yeah. Boss Baby should be full of cigarette smoke.
One of those scenes where you talk about that interplay between Nathan and Caleb is we've got it on the screen with the GIFs, is that dance scene.
I
so good.
love it. It's so good. It is amazing.
Can we talk for an hour about Get Down Saturday Night?
I love that
song.
scene.
Yeah.
It is so good. I first that first came to me in the Vice City soundtrack. It was
nice.
on one of the radio stations. So good and just perfectly used. I mean, you could try and replace that song with a few other maybe kind of latter day funk, early disco soundtrack.
Like Freak Out, something like that.
Yeah, something maybe some chic that would work, but I don't know. This is just absolutely perfect, and the choreography and the dancing is executed so brilliantly.
Yeah,
I mean, Oscar Isaac is just effortless in it. Fair play to him.
But it's so I'm mesmerized.
It is.
We're just staring at a wall of GIFs right now. It's mesmerizing, but it's also
It's really sinister as
threatening,
well.
threatening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sinister because it just shows how detached Nathan has become from humanity. Really, like he's slipping.
Yeah,
he has slipped. Slipped away from people.
We've got to stop looking at them.
Yeah. Can we talk about the one character we haven't actually spoken about, and that's Ava.
Yeah,
and that's the crux of the whole movie. So one thing that struck me, it was my third watch this time around, so I was kind of looking out for the little details. And the first interview or the first interaction with
session one
with Caleb.
Yeah.
If you notice the production design, the way that things are blocked, and the way that it's laid out, they're quite distant from one another. There's the glass in between, but it's a long shot, and they're obviously apprehensive and they're kind of cagey about one another. But then the next session, the camera pulls in closer, and they're closer to each other. And then soon after that, it starts to rotate so that they're equal position across from one another, with there's just the glass almost invisible in between.
Yeah.
And they get closer as it goes on, and it's just those little details that, you know, what's the film analysis term? Mise en scène. If you can manage to nail that, like it tells the story without having to tell the story.
That's a really good point. Actually, I hadn't really thought about that. I kind of thought about how they were distant in terms of it was almost master and commander.
Oh yeah.
At the start, but then they were trying to come. There's some kind of relationship and interplay coming, and that leads through. And you talk as you're talking through the different sessions to that point where she says, "Where would you want to go on a date?" And Caleb kind of almost ignores it as if like date, but that's where there's a bit more of a click in the direction of the story and a bit more of like a closeness and a bit more of like, oh, okay, this is actually getting a bit serious now.
And they do a lot. There's a lot of slow moments of just her getting dressed.
Yes.
Almost like she's putting on her skin. She puts on, in that scene, she puts on the dress, so you've got a surprise and she comes out with the hair. And particularly in one of the final scenes with her where she says, wait here. And then he really slows that down. He almost kind of sexualizes it in a sort of an undressing scene, but it's the opposite. It's very interesting. She's like picking her skin. She's like finally becoming complete, and then she just flat out shuts the door in his face.
Well, so she
Terrifying.
gives. Sorry, anyway, we're talking about spoilers here at the end, but she gives Caleb the option. She asks, "Would you wait here?" And he accepts because she has total control of him at that point. And so she she traps and dooms him, but he falls for her, and so he has only himself to blame for that.
Do you think he should have fallen for her? We'll come back to this discussion in a sec, but the way he fell for her is perhaps one of my kind of bugbears in this. I'm not kind of sure that would happen, but having seen something like her as well, where he falls hook, line, and sinker for Scarlett Johansson's just voice,
and who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? To be
absolutely.
fair.
Yeah.
Here you're faced with something that's living and living, quote unquote, breathing, quote unquote, and responding to you, interested in you in a way that obviously he's been handpicked, Caleb, to come and.
He's very lonely.
Yeah, he's a lonely guy.
He has very limited interaction, and to have this suddenly come on to him and have someone so interested in him, there'd be no way that he wouldn't fall for that.
But what's interesting is it's not a sexual relationship. It's almost it's quite chaste.
Her.
Yeah, but it's a connection, and it'd be far too easy to delve into the fembot, sexbot kind of territory, and it doesn't. As you said, it's about dressing. It's about passing for human rather than any kind of overt sexuality. It's all kind of bubbling under the surface. Really delicately handled.
What do you think about Alicia Vikander's acting generally in this?
Well, I thought it was sublime. I know she has a background in ballet.
Okay.
So that meant that like
her movements could be
exactly.
Yeah.
It's so controlled and it's robotic while also being organic, and that's a very fine line to walk. You don't want to be like Arnie charging through as the Terminator. That's the other end of the spectrum.
It's elegant.
Yeah, he's the master of elegance.
What I really noticed was the sound design, particularly on her. I hadn't really paid attention before to every time she moves. There's this very audible sort of mechanical whirring. Yeah, which then I think gets less and less as you go on, or at least you notice it less and less as she becomes more humanized.
That could be the natural damping of the fabrics, and eventually
she's soundproofing herself.
Yeah, and the skin going over that might damp that as well. But yeah, the sound design is a huge part of this movie. It contributes to the claustrophobic atmosphere, and it really pulls you in. I would recommend. Okay, the cinema is obviously the best way to see this, but if you can't, headphones would be the next best option. A decent set of headphones to make sure that you're completely immersed. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, top marks all around. I cannot fault this film visually or from an audio standpoint at all.
Well, I think it was really interesting because I think the budget's actually quite low on this.
16 million, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess like 15.9 million went into Ava's into the special effects of her skin and how she's made up, and I think it's absolutely flawless in how they put it together.
Yeah, I mean it's a few years old now, and it still looks like it just could have come out now. It's very timeless as well, and it could have been done 10 years ago, or it could have been released now. It's just because there's nothing specific to the outside world.
Yeah.
It's like time doesn't really affect it. And there is a danger that she could have looked a bit kind of cheap and a little bit crappy, but it just really, really works. And the fact that she's so unfinished as well, it's kind of like you can see the workings. And obviously when you see the different parts as well, you can see how the designs evolved and everything. It's really interesting.
The mechanical mesh, the kind of the design of the hands that are completely see-through, the arms. It's fascinating that like obviously that makes a lot of sense. It means it's lightweight, it can move, it can flex, but visually it really adds an awful lot because she's effectively transparent.
Yeah.
And that's part of the test for Caleb as well. You present this machine and then put them both to the test and see do they pass. Even when you know she's a machine, is that an obstacle or is it not? And clearly for Caleb it isn't.
No, he's hooked on.
He's ready to go.
Yeah,
there.
he is.
Can I bring up something I spotted this time around?
Of course.
When Nathan is unpacking in the bathroom, the shaving foam.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew you'd spot this, Joe. It's,
Well, Nathan or Caleb?
Sorry, Caleb.
Yeah.
Yes, Caleb, Donald Gleason's character, is unpacking. His shaving foam is the exact shaving foam that was used in Jurassic Park.
Really?
That they hid the
Oh,
little
okay.
Yep.
Really?
Newman from Seinfeld.
Do you know why?
Newman.
Is it a deliberate nod? Because I sort of tracked. I started googling similarities between the two, and there does seem to be quite a few.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, so they both arrive in a helicopter to a mysterious location. Him and Grant are both experts in their field who've been brought in without knowing what they're about to see, and they're there to sort of test the validity of it. Again, you've got an eccentric billionaire, Richard Hammond. No, I did it deliberately that time. I will always refer to him as Richard Hammond from now on. You get a sort of a walk through the park, you get the science, and then you're shown the security system. The security system starts going wrong.
Sure does.
Which falls, and then raptors.
The raptor scene in this was first time I saw it. It's
I know.
quite shocking.
I was in Raptors the whole time.
I knew you'd do it.
It was just,
But so sorry. The tagline, or at least the through line in Jurassic Park is "Life finds a way." Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just like to say at this point, my boyfriend hasn't seen Jurassic Park.
Oh, my God.
Ooh.
I know, this is...
Still together, are you?
Yeah.
For now,
So-
tenterhooks.
Can you tell him that he needs to watch it? 'Cause he'll listen now. Can you say...
Oh yeah. Before you do another thing, your relationship depends on it. You need to watch Jurassic Park.
Immediately.
Yeah, just to steer clear of the sequels. But yeah, the first one and only one.
And there's also, I forgot, the music when Caleb first arrives. That piano that's playing in the
Right.
hall. It's not quite it's not, obviously not John Williams' track, but it's reminiscent of it. There are a lot of notes in there. If you have another listen.
I like this. How did you even notice? How did you even pick up on?
This just
It's
kind
just
of makes,
such a
can.
distinctive can that
Barbara
makes me
Barbasol,
like
yeah.
them both even more now.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, so it's a common brand. So it's feasible that it's just randomly in there, but it's a brand that is not available in the UK where this is filmed. So that suggests that it's a deliberate choice.
I thought it's just
Yeah.
filmed in Norway.
So Pinewood Studios for the interiors
Okay.
and exteriors in Norway.
Okay. It's a lovely house, isn't it?
It really is.
I
There's a lot
mean-
of real estate porn in it.
Who doesn't want a secret dungeon underneath
like-
their house?
A, secret dungeon. B, next to a glacier. C-
Yeah.
It's got
everything.
it's got it all. It's got it all.
Accessible only by helicopter.
Can we talk about some of the more salacious aspects of this film?
Absolutely.
The idea of having any person, but specifically a woman, trapped in your basement with no hope of escape.
Well, he's kind of got two, hasn't he?
He's got at least two that we know of, and there's a few hanging in. Well, okay, yeah. Nope, spoilers.
Skeletons in the closet.
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, when you look at the film through that lens, it becomes a survivor story from Ava's perspective. Like, she is being held against her will, and the previous iterations.
It's almost like
similar.
Room in a way.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Saucy.
yeah.
I don't know why I said saucy. I don't know.
Nobody has ever described
No.
Room as saucy.
But yeah, it's
So
survivor
it-
hostage kind of
there's
story.
there's that vibe there, and like from Nathan's relationships with the other robots, there is certainly potential, not the certainty, but there is potential for some inappropriate acts, given that he is her surrogate father as well. That's the creepier aspect of the whole thing. It's like a Fritzl situation. It's deeply unsettling on that level.
Well, there's that tense conversation as to why Caleb asking Nathan, why did you give her sexuality? And Nathan pretty much saying, what's your real question here, mate?
Yeah.
Can I fuck her is what he was kind of trying to allude to.
Yeah.
And that never kind of played out. But obviously Nathan is there making these robots and he's having sex with them, isn't he?
But so the gender side of it, okay, could you imagine this film with the gender roles reversed, with a guy down in the basement and women running the show? Or could you imagine a single sex environment where the captive and the tester are in a relationship or a budding relationship. But what I think is deliberate here is that the female has powers that disarm the male. That Caleb is not equipped to deal with her mentally or even emotionally or anything. He is just
out of his depth.
Well, yeah, oh, absolutely.
For every stage in the film, he is just so far out of control.
Yeah. He's the fly and she's the spider, and there is no escape.
He's a real sap of a character, really, isn't he? Deliberately so.
He's a bit hapless. Yeah,
hapless. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not even that good at coding, it turns out.
Yeah. I chose the best code in my company. You're not even that good. Well, you're okay, but...
Yeah, but you can't trust anything Nathan says. He could be like the absolute best, but he'd lie to him anyway. I'm holding out hope for that. I'm a foxy Irishman. I have to associate with
we should also nod to the fact that Donald Gleason played an AI in Black Mirror.
Yes.
And Black Mirror is certainly what this film is.
Although this is more obviously a sci-fi kind of maybe distant future or non-existent future, whereas Black Mirror is more this
near
could happen,
present.
Yeah, this could happen next year.
But everything that happens in this is
happening,
semi-believable.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to. There is no suspension of disbelief in this. It's just a question. It's not a question even of if. It's a question of when.
2040 is the answer. You said.
Mark my words. If this podcast still exists in 2040,
we'll recall it back then.
The film that I kind of compare this to a little bit, and it's one we've had on before, it's kind of a little bit like Under the Skin.
Yes.
I think in some way. There's obviously they're completely different films, but rewatching this and obviously having watched Under the Skin quite recently, they're kind of similar. And the two female performances in there are very similar as well. And they're both extremely interesting performances and just think really, but it's kind of because they're completely different films, but they're very similar.
Well, I think that they tackle a different topic, like Under the Skin, and I know you've done a whole episode on this, but there's a vegan vegetarian subtext to that film, the idea of harvesting humans for their meat, and apparently the book goes into way more detail on that. But this film is more about consciousness, what it means to be alive, and kind of how you fit into the world, and at what point do humans have to hand over to the next phase. And when do we have a say and when do we not? Under the Skin doesn't spell out anything for you, whereas like there's way more dialogue in this.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's female protagonist, very different from everyone else in the world. Creepy film. Brilliant, but creepy.
I don't think, before we go on to the popcorn time, as everyone's looking forward to, I'm not sure we've fully answered your kind of question about the different genders at play, because I don't think it would have worked as all male or all female or role reversal. But it'd be interesting to know if how far down the line Nathan would be to introduce a male AI into the mix.
Yes.
Then it becomes a bit more like Westworld, I guess, which you guys have talked about, and that's kind of leading into that kind of interactions between the AIs and how they work together. And that's something that's not really kind of discussed in this film. Apart from this one scene, we say it's a 3.5-hander because there's one other AI who doesn't say a word, but she's integral to, I guess, the running of the show. But there's only that one kind of brief interaction when Ava escapes, and they kind of look at each other and almost do like, there's like the thing with the velociraptors where they kind of look at each other and sniff each other and then walk away.
Yeah.
But that's the only interaction that they have together. Or does she whisper something to her?
Oh, they communicate.
Yeah.
Because she can't understand English, but the only person who can talk to her is Ava. Well, okay, no, Nathan says it, so you can't take that for being true at all. But Nathan claims that she can't understand English. Yeah. It's
But it'd be interesting to see how those interactions, if it did go to the next level, where his mind would go if it wasn't stabbed at the end.
And so in watching this, I began thinking of there's another film on Netflix. It's actually a documentary. It's called My Sex Robot, which plays into this.
What's that about?
Let me think.
So I've read the synopsis. I haven't plucked up the courage to watch this, but
it's the way it just stays in your history as well, isn't it? What's recently?
No,
no way you can delete that.
You got to sign up for the month's free trial, an assumed name for that stuff. So the idea is that there are these lonely fetishists primarily in the US who are developing these sex robots, and they go into the idea that the very thing that you asked, why a female?
Yeah.
And I think what they landed on is that the heterosexual guy is much more comfortable assembling the female anatomy than the male anatomy.
Right.
And would probably have spent much more time studying one than the other. So I think maybe, does that to some extent answer the question? Or
Well, it was just an open kind of thoughts as to what you guys thought about.
the other side is
Nobody wants to make a robot dick. That's what, that's what we're saying here.
So the other side is that Ava is if you go to the etymology of the name, it's the same root as Eve, the first human, or
Yeah.
the second human technically. But so it's the idea that she's the first of her kind, and kind of she is both the temptation and the snake in the biblical, if you follow the biblical analogy. And even to go back further, like the ancient Greek Prometheus myth, like this is like a postmodern Prometheus. If Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is the modern Prometheus, this is the postmodern Prometheus. So
That's even mentioned at one point by Nathan.
He does talk about it, yeah.
Yeah, he mentions that something's Promethean.
yeah, and the idea that you are a god effectively if you can create artificial intelligence like this, then yeah.
I love that line where he keeps sort of paraphrasing Caleb incorrectly. He said, "Yeah, you said I was a god yesterday. Remember?"
and he says, "No, I didn't say that."
Yeah.
And Nathan doesn't respond. And it was only on third watch that I figured out why. It's that Caleb was selected so that he could be disposed with. So Nathan can give his own version of events, and no one will contradict him.
Yeah,
which is dark. It is really dark.
Yep.
The perfect patsy.
And even the joke about when they built the house, and he said that he had all the engineers killed, or all the construction people killed. You're like, yeah, you probably did.
Is it popcorn time?
It's popcorn time now.
Let's popcorn.
Oh wow.
Oh, hello.
Thank you to Popcorn Shed for providing us with this delicious popcorn.
Dive in, guys.
I'll be the judge of that.
It's a secret family recipe.
Yeah, it's delicious, all right.
So-
You win this round, Popcorn Shed.
So this is a rich chocolate one. Chocolate caramel popcorn with a Belgian milk chocolate centre. Not centre, but yeah.
Oh my god.
Dive in.
That is good.
Do we just carry on talking, or do we go?
We can just, chomp away.
Wow.
Can we talk about the security system that he decided to install? That's all keycard based.
Well, that was his undoing at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah. Why make a security system that relies on you having a tiny plastic thing that you can easily lose, and you're by yourself?
There's got to be something written into the script that makes the story go, isn't there?
You need an escape
Yeah.
route. Also, hubris.
Yeah.
That's the answer to everything in sci-fi.
Just have a few more bites of the popcorn, and we'll go into the scoring system, guys.
Oh my god, it's so good.
You want to take some home with you?
Yes, please.
Chocolatey.
I do love it. Everything. This is really. Yeah. One more big bite.
Was anyone else?
Thank you to Popcorn Shed.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, thanks guys.
Thanks very much. Was anyone else weirded out by the tiny little grey patch on the top of Oscar Isaac's head?
He's balding. Let him have that.
I didn't notice that.
No, it wasn't. No, it was like a patch of his hair. It was grey. I don't know. Was it deliberately added in? I don't think this is a relevant detail.
Well,
Just thought it was interesting.
Hang on. So either, I can see it in the photo. There is a patch. So either it's natural and they left it in because they want it with the character, or they added it in for the character, because if it was natural and they didn't want it, they just dye it out.
Yeah, you think so?
All right. So let's go to the patented Flixwatcher scoring system. It's not patented yet. We might one day.
Patent pending.
Patent pending, exactly.
The patent pending is pending.
And although it says recommendability,
That's some mad ability. bro.
Recommendability.
first up is the recommendability. It
One
isn't
day,
a
Helen.
word.
One day, Helen. It'll just chip off the tongue.
We're so done with New Year, New You. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
Our scores are out of 5 if you're unsure. We'll start with you, as soon as it's your choice.
Well, unsurprisingly, I would recommend this to just about anyone. And that's without a guarantee that they'd like it.
Oh, right.
So I would use this film as a filter to to split people and go, right, well, here are the people who like ExMachina, and I will talk to these people. And the people who don't, well, I can try and make them come around, but after a certain point, that's a lost cause. So
You're just going to cull them as friends.
well,
I'm glad I like this movie, or
this would have been really awkward. So yeah, in terms of recommendability, it is so tight. It's like a play.
Yeah, true. I hadn't
It's-
thought about that.
It's got so much sci-fi premise and so much. It's really densely packed and perfectly produced. So yeah, recommendability 5.
Strong.
I'm a 5 as well. I have recommended this to so many people and will continue to do so. And I think as we said, it's largely quite accessible. I think this isn't dense sci-fi. It's not like Primer, which me and Joe have talked about quite a lot, which is just like really hard to tackle and would be off-putting. I feel like I could sit my dad down in front of this, who hates sci-fi, and at least he'd understand what was going on.
Well, the acid test is my partner Ruth cannot stand sci-fi and love the film.
Okay.
There you go.
Helen,
5.
Short and sweet.
straight out the well.
You know, if I could give it 6, then I would. It's perfect. It's If you haven't seen it and you're still listening,
then you know how it ends. Sorry.
no, it's great. I think we've established that.
I'm going to go for a bit lower than you guys. I'm going to go for 4, I think. Because I think talking like with your acid test with Ruth, I think there are people I know who would kind of go, why am I watching this film, dude?
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, they'll
Also-
never be friends with Joe.
No,
We've
exactly.
determined
So
that much.
I'll make sure not to introduce you.
I'm willing to be friends with them as long as they come around to ExMachina. So
But I think it's really accessible because even if you're not a fan of sci-fi, it's still interesting enough as kind of, a potential future way of looking at it and not looking at it as a science fiction film.
I know that, but it's still the fact that my recommendability score goes from 1 being Adam Sandler's Ridiculous 6
Okay.
to 5 being Back to the Future.
yeah,
And Back to the Future being the hardcore 5. And I don't think this is anywhere near as recommendable as Back to the Future, where I could just say to literally everyone, scream it out in the middle of Trafalgar Square, watch Back to the Future right now. I would still be hesitant I'd think about it before recommending this to people.
I think so. I think you're right. There are people that you could recommend it to, and based on the poster and the trailer,
Yeah.
they could be expecting like explosions and robots and murders, and like it's pretty light on all those things. In fact, 0 explosions,
Some murders.
some murders, but it's not iRobot.
No.
It's a very different film. So yeah, I think people could have a different expectation. So
Yeah.
I'd love to see the BBFC rating that says that. No explosions, some murders. It's not iRobot.
Repeat viewing score. We've all seen it multiple times, haven't we?
Yeah.
Joe?
yes, I watched it in the cinema. I've seen it on TV, and I most recently watched it on my phone because I know that you have a small screen score. So I'll keep that for later. But yeah, repeat viewing. If someone came to me tomorrow and said, Joe, do you want to watch ExMachina? I'd be like, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This it's short. It's 1 hour 40 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
It's very tight.
Thereabouts, yeah.
Keeps chugging along. There's no kind of lulls in the story, is there? Yeah. So what'd you say? Out of 5?
I'll give it a 5.
5.
I'm going to give it a 5 as well. This is only my second time watching it yesterday, and I'd definitely go for another hit. Joe, do you want to watch this tomorrow?
Oh, please. Yeah.
I would say, I forgot to say, Kathy, I went to see this with my wife, Kathy, and we were living in Sydney at the time. And we were, she told me to tell this story because we were in a taxi back from the cinema, and we were...
Cinetaxi.
Cinetaxi, yeah. There's an idea. And we were chatting away about the movie, and we were getting really into it because there's so much to talk about. And the taxi driver hadn't said anything, but then he goes, guys, do you mind stopping? I really want to see that movie. You're spoiling it for me.
We always forget the taxi driver's feelings, don't we, when we're talking away in the background?
Yeah.
They're people too.
Yeah, they are. One day they'll be AIs, like Ava.
Johnny Cat.
Sadly
Johnny
true.
Cat.
Yeah.
That is so true.
Repeat viewing score.
5. Yeah. I only managed to part watch it in time, rewatch it. So I'm going to watch the rest of it from the start when I get home.
Oh, well.
Let's all do it.
Yeah.
Look out for that shaving foam can.
That's it. I'm going to be like,
Yeah, I'm going to fast forward just to that bit and check, and then get a screen shot from Jurassic Park.
There's a tweet.
It is the same. Newman. 4.5, I think, for me.
Cool.
Yeah, high score. Probably watch it at some point next year. I think this is probably the third time I've seen it. The first time was everyone's first time in the cinema?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that leads on to the small screen score then. Joe.
Yeah, as I said, the third watch was on the phone,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't encourage anyone to watch anything like any kind of movie on a phone. I think it's a real disservice to the director and all the people involved. That said, if you have no other way of watching it, this film does hold up on a small screen.
Okay.
Provided you have headphones, because that'll really help link you in. If you were going through a tiny phone speaker, you wouldn't get the full impact whatsoever.
No.
So on that basis, I'd give it a 3.5, I would say.
Okay.
And bear in mind, that's about as high as I can go for a small screen score.
Dave.
Cool. I didn't watch it on my phone. I watched it on
Projector.
on my TV. No, I didn't get it. It was daytime, and the projector just wouldn't have worked. But I watched it on the TV, and it really holds up. I mean, yeah, preferably you do want the. I think a bigger screen is going to lend to that atmosphere. But actually, I think you make a very good point, Joe. I think the headphones are almost more important than the visuals. So yeah, I think a 4 for me.
Do you know, if you want to start watching your projector during the day, do you know what you need, Dave?
What do I need,
You
Joe?
need a dungeon under your house.
Well, what can you keep in that dungeon? What?
I can give it a 4. I mean, it's great in the cinema to have had that experience, but also rewatching it again, because everything's set indoors pretty much. It kind of feels like you're inside watching it on the smaller screen, and it almost feels like you're sort of watching it through like a surveillance thing, like you're watching, like kind of spying in on it. So I think it does work as a small screen as well, but I definitely agree with the sound that you have to really give it your full attention and, you know, treat yourself to watching it on the biggest screen you can get with some nice sound.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to side with Joe in this one. I saw it in the cinema, and I think the special effects, even though they're impressive, they're not like flashbang wallop like Marvel films where you think, I need to see this in the big screen to get the most effect out of it. They're not subtle, but they don't need giant things coming out. There's not 3D stuff happening. And I think I've missed out perhaps in not listening on headphones. I've got a fairly decent setup connected to my TV, but then they weren't cranked up. I wasn't really absorbed in the same way you guys are. So I think if I watched it again, it would be with my cans on and directly plugged into the TV. So I think there's something to be said. So it's not just small screen, it's sound enhancement score. I don't know what that means. That needs to be accounted for in this one.
Well, I suppose the small screen and the audio go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So when you bring one down, you inevitably sacrifice the other.
Yeah.
So I think this one's more about the sound than about the screen
visuals,
size.
yeah.
But particularly because it is so static. You know, there's no running action scenes or explosions or anything like that. It's compact.
Engagement score. Joe.
Unsurprisingly, I was plenty engaged by this movie.
You were staring at your phone for that solid hour and a half.
Yeah. So when I went to this in the cinema, I hadn't even seen the trailer. So I knew it was Turing test related, and I knew who was in it. That's about it. And I was absolutely blown away, and it kept me guessing throughout. Like there's a series of rug pulls through the movie, and you're drip fed information, and you're kind of wondering what exactly is going on. So in terms of engagement, I would yeah. I mean, it's got to be a 5 for me.
5 for me as well. I just was gripped. Even the second time, I'm just glued to it. I was actually, when I threw it on yesterday, I had all these ambitions because I had a lot of work to do, and I was I'll just have it on in the background because I've seen it before, and I had the laptop open, and then within like 5 minutes, the laptop was like put away to the side, and I was just glued to it. So yeah, absolute 5 out of the park.
Helen?
5.
Ooh.
I mean, the first time you see it, you're so led, and you're so engaged in the story, and obviously the ending as well is like the impact. But then when you watch it again, even though you know how it's going to turn out, it's still equally as enjoyable, but on different levels. And following our discussion now, there's so many other things. It's like kind of like an Easter egg thing.
Yeah.
Like there's little things you can keep going back to watch and find out. And there's so much depth to it that to only watch it once is probably a bit of a shame because it's got so much going on. And it's still so engaging. It's not like, oh, there's a bit where you can like switch off for a bit, or you're like, well, there's a boring bit coming up, because it isn't like that. You have to follow it, and if you miss some of it, then you'll be like, oh wait, what happened?
Like
and you'll have to go back to
if you
find
went
out.
if you went to the bathroom and you missed the dance scene, like you would kick yourself forever.
You'd be like, I don't remember any dancing in it. Yeah, so yeah, 5.
Stern look. Yeah, 5. Put it down. I'm going to go for 4, I think, here, because I think you have to be 100% focused on it.
Okay.
And in the cinema, that's super simple. But for some reason, when I watched it this time, I just wasn't as into it as I had been in the cinema and had been previously. So maybe it's the diminishing kind of, oh, I know it's going to happen next. This is the bit where he, Ava says, do you want to go on a date kind of thing. So I knew those things were coming. But what I really should have been doing is maybe looking at the in-between and the more nuanced parts. So I think the engagement score should be 5, but I wasn't that engaged this time round. So I'm going to give it 4.
I should have given you my work to do. I wouldn't be so behind there.
So that gives us an overall score of 4.5, which is
wow, that's high.
Which is up there.
It's good.
Where are we on the scale? Did we beat What We Do in the Shadows?
What We Do in the Shadows is 4.7, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is high.
Yeah.
That's a great movie as well.
Yeah.
I really loved your episode on that.
Oh, thank you. So we reached out to Twitter to get some reviews before coming in here, and yeah, a fair few people came back with their scores. One, Kathy Cullen, said loved it, 4.5 stars. Does anyone know Kathy here?
Kathy Cullen rings a bell.
Yeah.
No, okay. How have you not seen? Says love it, love ExMachina, no score. I've specifically asked for a rating.
I think that says it all, really. Love it, 1 star.
They've got a great podcast, actually. Quick shout out to them.
How have you not seen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you listened to them?
No, I haven't yet.
So each of them review a film that they all should have seen before. Like recently they did Aliens, and it was very good. One of them had never seen it.
Yeah. It's
That's a great premise,
Okay.
isn't
It is
it?
really
Good.
good.
Yeah, I like the idea of that.
Movies Now and Then says an amazing cautionary tale of a man's hubris. The H word you've pulled out there a few times, Joe. And again, it's Frankenstein for the internet age, so the postmodern Frankenstein, Promethean kind of story. So generally, really high ratings for this. And
Yeah,
this
no one's come on there and gone, it's a bit crap.
yeah,
Yeah.
amazing film. Really makes you question the ideas of AI and how much fear and manipulation can change someone. 5 out of 5, one of my favorites. That's from Quinn Jupiter. Thank you very much, guys, for giving us your ratings. I think it's tallies exactly with what's been talked about in the pod booth here.
I think what this is telling me is that anyone who has seen it has loved it.
Yeah.
So there's probably quite a lot of people who haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't seem to have, pervaded the way like Marvel movies would have, because it's a relatively small indie film, effectively.
Well, it's one of those films. It's like What We Do in the Shadows. Not enough people have seen it.
Yes.
And that's irritating. and not enough people have seen ExMachina, and that's irritating. And you just kind of think, well, why are so many people going to see when Transformers comes out later this year? So many more people going to see that, and that's going to be utter tripe. And you think, spend your time and your money and your effort on watching something that's actually good. And that's what's always disappointing about these.
You don't even need money, guys.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
That costs money too, though.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But not so much.
Yeah, no. For the price of one ticket to Transformers, you could have a month's Netflix. So
Yeah, there you go.
So I think we should sign off there, guys. Let us know who you are, where we can find you.
Well, I'm on 2 podcasts. I'm on the Cinemile with my wife Kathy. That's at the Cinemile, and I'm on Shitegeist with Joe.
yeah, so you can tweet at Shitegeist Pod with anything you want.
Anything at all.
I want to
Anything
see
at all.
what happens.
Yeah.
Do some retweeting so I can see what kind of people tweet at you.
Yeah, we've been getting some unusual tweets lately, but we won't retweet those. Yeah, so thank you very much, guys, for having us on.
Thanks so much.
Really, you've been quite the hosts, and you've showed us a great space, a great time, and a great film. So yeah.
Well, you
thank
chose
very
the
much.
film.
Yeah, you chose
Well,
film.
I wasn't going to say.
We thank you
but-
for
Great film. Joe's like, great choice, Joe. And have a listen out to an upcoming Shitegeist pod, because we're going to have Kobe and Helen on to talk about the state of streaming services
Exactly. Yeah.
in the world.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the chat there with Joe and Dave, collectively from Shitegeist, but also from the Cinemile. ExMachina is a hardcore film. I hope you enjoyed the chat. Please do look out for us all over the social media. Please do go find GL Productions and say thank you so much to all the guys from Mighty People for the tunes you can hear right now in the show. Link to us, find us all in the show notes. Find us on the Twitters. Find us everywhere on the internet. Just type in Flixwatcher, FLIXWATCHER, and you'll be able to find us quite easily because there's not many people with that name around the place. Catch you later. Bye.